is the fourth field-based experience by Megan Marshall for EDU 541, School and Society with Dr. Bourne, April 25th, 2021. Under Proposition 4, teachers think systematically about their practice and learn from experience, I chose Trend 7. Expanding globalization impacts knowledge, competition, people, values, ideas, technology, and economy across U.S. borders. Under Trend 7, I will examine the significance that globalization has on a child's ability to compete for future jobs and explain how I will communicate this phenomenon to my students to prepare them for a life in a global knowledge information age. The importance of globalization continues to increase day by day. The last year has reiterated how interconnected the world is. While educators, we understand the significance of this phenomenon, how do we best help our students to comprehend these changes? There are main ideas which we can reinforce to better prepare students for a globalized world. This is extremely important because if students do not understand globalization, they will not be able to compete for future jobs. One way that we can see where the United States compares with education systems around the world is the Pisa Test. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, the Pisa Test is the Program for International Student Assessment. It is an international assessment that measures 15-year-old students' reading, mathematics, and science literacy every 3 years. First conducted in 2000, the major domain of study rotates between reading, mathematics, and science in each cycle. This is important because we need to understand where we lie compared to education systems around the world. More importantly, we need to know what is working for students. The United States is currently ranked 13th in PISA test scores. So how do we help our students better compete in a global economy? The first thing we must do is to better educate our educators. This includes incorporating culture into our everyday education. According to Tom Vander Ark, author of Best 5 Practices to Globalize Your School, for global education to be successfully implemented into any school, it is critical that global concepts are incorporated into what teachers are already doing. Global education is a context through which all teaching and learning can and should occur. In other words, teachers can incorporate globalization into lessons they already have. It is important that we do this as often as possible. If we blend what we are familiar with new concepts such as globalization, students will better comprehend what we are teaching. One way we can better prepare students for globalization is to expose them to as many different cultures as possible. This can be done in several ways. One source a teacher can use is an ePal. Through this website, students can become friends with a class from another country. This allows students to learn about similarities and differences between them and students from around the world. Often, the students will realize that they share similar interests with these students. According to Drexel University of Education, regardless of the subject, always try to present and connect lessons to real-world issues. It is easier to promote cultural awareness within your lessons when there is a real example for students to relate to. Sometimes we forget to teach to the whole class. For example, when teaching a history lesson, we should include all perspectives of an event, rather than just those of the United States. When doing an English lesson, we can incorporate other languages. We can also encourage students to learn about trends in other countries. This will help students better relate to these children. We can also increase necessary skills, which will make our students stronger global competitors. Students need to learn to better use technology for education rather than just for entertainment. According to Brad Kuntz, author of In the Classroom with Brad Kuntz, instead, we need to find a way to embrace all forms of technology in the classroom and use them to our advantage. By training students to use technology appropriately and effectively, and providing opportunities for them to reach learning targets through its usage, we create a situation in which students are engaged in learning. We also free ourselves from constant cycle of fighting against students. Instead of thinking that technology is something that we need to take away from students, we must realize that technology can benefit students. We also must teach students other languages. This not only increases their skills for the global job market, but also helps these students better understand other cultures. These skills will become increasingly necessary to function in our globalized world and to prepare for the job market. For my interview with my field educator, Mrs. Gain, I included questions that I find to be important when discussing globalization. The first question I asked her was, does she feel as if our country has been ethnocentric when discussing globalization? She explained that she feels that throughout history, we have never really taught students the importance of globalization because we did not feel as if it was important. The United States has believed that individuals coming here should adapt to our way of life and speak our language. This is something that we have realized recently must change. I went on to ask her if she felt teachers were resisting the changes that needed to take place in order to better educate students. She explained that she feels for many years educators felt if their method was the best. Recently, we have learned from other countries that this may not be true. Teachers are now learning that students need more freedom to learn things that they are interested in. There also needs to be less restriction on technology. She went on to say that this has been difficult for her because partly of her age and partly because she felt like she was a great teacher. She never wanted to use technology in her classroom because she did not understand it. She said that this was a hard thing for her to admit because she felt as if she was a great teacher without it. So the next question I asked her was why globalization was important for young students. She claimed that this is important for young students because this is their future. They will undoubtedly be living in an extremely globalized world. If they learn these lessons young, they will become more culturally competent adults. From my research and interviews, I have learned that there are several ways that I can include lessons in my classroom that encourage globalization. It is important to combine the old with the new in order to make the transition easy on the students. This can be done by modifying existing lessons to incorporate other cultures and ideas. I will also join EPALS so that my class can meet individuals from another country. This is important because they will see that while we all may look and speak differently, we are just people trying to live and learn about the world around us. I also plan on working harder to learn how to be a better global educator. If I do not take on the responsibility of learning how to best educate all my students, I am not being the best teacher I can be. While this year has brought many changes, I believe that future generations will not only be more accepting, but more adaptable. Franklin D. Roosevelt said it best when he said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." My references included The Biggest Essential Threat to Public Education is Giving Teachers Anxiety from ABC News, 5 Best Practices to Globalize Your School by ARC. A quote from Great Speeches, Good Reads. In the Classroom with Brad Kuntz, Be Your Good Self by Brad Kuntz. Program for International Student Assessment, Pisa, from the National Center for Education Statistics. The Importance of Diversity in the Classroom, from Drexel School of Education. Thank you for watching my video.